Adam stormed toward his father, fists clenched and face flushed with anger. His steps were heavy, each one echoing his frustration and growing resentment. His father, Philip, stood firm, his weathered face calm but resolute, eyes betraying a weariness that had come with years of disappointment and heartache. The tension between father and son had grown unbearable over the years, and now it seemed to have reached its breaking point. Philip had once believed he could always rely on his son, that the bond they shared would carry them through the rough patches of life. Yet, as Adam's fist drew back, poised to strike his father in a moment of pure rage, an unexpected intervention occurred. An eagle, majestic and fierce, swooped down from the sky, catching both men off guard. Its talons grazed the air near Adam, sending him stumbling back in shock. For a moment, neither father nor son moved, stunned by the sudden appearance of the bird. Philip's heart raced, but a part of him was not surprised by the eagle's arrival. The old man had once saved the creature, and now it seemed as if the bird had returned the favor. As Philip's eyes filled with tears, he thought back to the day when he had first encountered this magnificent bird, a day that had changed his life in more ways than he could have ever imagined. Years before, Philip had been a man burdened with the weight of loss. His beloved wife had passed away, leaving him to raise their 2 children alone. In his grief, Philip had overcompensated, showering his children, especially Adam, with all the material comforts he could provide, hoping to make up for the absence of their mother. But the consequences of his actions soon became clear. While his daughter grew up kind and responsible, Adam spiraled into a life of selfishness and recklessness. From an early age, Adam rejected the academic and moral values Philip tried to instill in him. He dropped out of school and immersed himself in a world of indulgence, getting into fights, stealing, and bringing shame to the family. It pained Philip deeply to watch his son make poor choices, especially as his daughter thrived, pursuing higher education and leaving for university. When Adam eventually moved away to a distant city, the ties between father and son became almost non-existent. Years passed, and Philip found himself alone in a large, empty house. His once vibrant home had become a quiet, lonely place, and as his health began to fail, Philip's sense of isolation grew unbearable. His walks through the countryside were one of the few comforts he had left, offering a reprieve from the growing physical weakness that plagued him. It was during one of these walks that Philip came across a sight that tugged at his heartstrings. At the base of a large oak tree, an injured eagle lay struggling, its wings damaged and its body battered. The bird's golden eyes were filled with pain, and its powerful body was grounded, unable to take flight. Philip felt an overwhelming urge to help the creature. Carefully, he approached the eagle, his steps slow and deliberate, his hands reaching out to scoop the bird into his arms. The eagle did not resist. It seemed to understand that Philip meant no harm, and together they returned to his home. Over the next several weeks, Philip cared for the eagle with a tenderness he hadn't felt in years. He cleaned and dressed the bird's wounds, ensuring it had enough food and water. The eagle's recovery was slow but steady, and soon enough, the bird regained its strength. But even after its wings healed, the eagle did not leave. Instead, it remained close to Philip's home, circling above during the day and returning each evening. An unspoken bond had formed between man and bird, a connection that transcended the natural world. Philip found a new sense of purpose in caring for the eagle, and the bird's presence brought him a peace he hadn't known since the loss of his wife. As the weeks turned into months, the eagle became a fixture in Philip's life. He would sit on his porch for hours, watching the bird soar through the sky or sit perched in a nearby tree. In the evenings, he would talk to the eagle, sharing his thoughts and feelings, though he knew the bird couldn't understand his words. Still, it felt like the eagle was listening, offering Philip a kind of companionship he hadn't expected. Then one day, as Philip sat in his usual spot on the porch, he spotted a figure approaching from the distance. His heart skipped a beat when he realized who it was: Adam, his estranged son. Philip hadn't seen Adam in years, and he had long since given up hope of any reconciliation. Yet here he was, standing at the edge of the porch, announcing that he had returned home to share some important news. Adam spoke quickly, telling his father that he was engaged to a woman from a wealthy family in another city. He had come not out of love or nostalgia, but because he needed money to secure his place in this new life. His words were rushed, his tone dismissive, and Philip immediately sensed that something was off. When Philip hesitated, explaining that he didn't have much to give, Adam's frustration boiled over. He sneered at the small sum his father offered, declaring that it wasn't nearly enough to impress his future in-laws. The harsh realization hit Philip like a wave. His son had returned not out of love or desire to reconnect, but to exploit him. The disappointment cut deep, but this time Philip didn't give in. He refused to hand over the money, insisting that Adam leave. The confrontation escalated quickly, with Adam's temper flaring and Philip standing his ground for the first time in years. It was in that moment of heated tension that the eagle returned, its sharp cry cutting through the air. Swooping down, it aimed directly at Adam, its talons brushing his arm in a warning strike. The sudden attack startled Adam, sending him reeling back. The look of shock on his face mirrored Philip's own surprise, but where Adam's shock turned to anger, Philip's heart swelled with a mix of relief and sorrow. The eagle, his trusted companion, had come to his aid when his own son had turned against him. Adam cursed under his breath, glaring at his father before storming off, never to be seen again. The encounter left Philip shaken, but he felt a strange sense of closure. His son had chosen his path, and though it pained him, Philip understood that he could no longer hold on to the hope that Adam would change. The next day, Philip's daughter arrived at the house. She had heard about the confrontation with Adam and was worried about her father's well-being. Seeing him frail and tired, she insisted that he come live with her. She didn't want him to spend his remaining years in loneliness, and though Philip hesitated at first, he eventually agreed, on one condition. The eagle had to come with him. His daughter agreed without hesitation. She had seen the bond between her father and the bird and knew how much comfort the eagle brought him. Together, the three of them, Philip, his daughter, and the eagle, moved into her home. It was an unusual arrangement, but one that brought Philip immense peace in his final years. The eagle continued to stay close, watching over Philip as his health declined. It would perch outside his window, a silent guardian, its sharp eyes always keeping watch. As the months passed, Philip's strength faded, but the bond he shared with the eagle remained as strong as ever. In his final moments, he looked out the window one last time, catching sight of the eagle soaring through the sky, and he smiled, knowing that he was never truly alone. Through the heartache of losing his son and the loyalty of the eagle, Philip had come to understand the true meaning of family. It wasn't about blood or obligation, but about love, loyalty, and the bonds we choose to nurture. In the end, Philip found peace in the knowledge that he had been loved by his daughter and by the remarkable bird that had become his closest companion. As time went on, Philip's daughter would often sit on the porch, watching the eagle as it circled above. It had been her father's guardian, and now it seemed to watch over her too. The bird remained a constant presence in her life, a reminder of the strength and love her father had carried with him until the very end.